is made up of 606 feet, 606 feet, 606 feet, 606 feet. 606. It's made up of stades, exactly the same. Now, if that's not interesting enough, look at the angle of the Great Pyramid of Giza. If you take the angle of the Great Pyramid of Giza, the slope is 51.8 degrees. Let's go back to the earthworks. If you measure the line that goes straight through the center of the structure, right here, and then you go true north, it's 51.8 degrees. That angle is exactly the same angle as the pyramids of Giza. It is the same math, the same calculations as ancient Egyptians. Let me show you one more connection. In 1860, David Wyrick, he's a guy who surveyed the Newark earthworks. He was digging into a mound near those earthworks, and he found a wooden coffin made of oak. They opened up the coffin and found a skeleton of a man holding a little box. It was about 8.10 inches in size. The box had been cemented shut here. This, by the way, is sitting in Ohio. Well, he opened up the box and he found a little man inside, a little black stone. They took it to scholars and they looked at it. The man seems to be carrying something, and there's writing here at first they couldn't recognize. The writing is, they thought in 1860, some sort of Hebrew. Well, finally, about 20 years later, they found some rabbis living in the area, and the rabbis looked at that, and they could read it. They said it was an old kind of block Hebrew, and it was a rendition of the Ten Commandments. Now, this is another piece. Block Hebrew, they said they'd never seen anything like it. Mainstream archaeologists at the time called this a hoax. But then in 1900, or just about after 1900, in Israel, they found the same block-style Hebrew writing. Mainstream archaeologists still dismiss the findings. They found it in Israel, and they found it in Ohio. But there was another stone that they found that they couldn't argue. This is the Bat Creek stone. It was found during the course of an official Smithsonian evacuation. The Smithsonian didn't understand the meaning of the writing on the stone. They thought it was Cherokee, since it came from Cherokee country. They didn't realize that it's actually Hebrew. They had published this originally upside down. They threw it in a box at the bottom of the Smithsonian, put it in the basement. Many years later, a scholar took it out of the box, looked at it, and went, oh my gosh, it's upside down. It's Phoenician, ancient Hebrew. So what's going on here? What is that about? Where is that history? I'll show you in a few minutes, and we're going to have a conversation, and I'm going to show you some more things that the Smithsonian, science, government, commerce colluded to erase. By the way,
high up in the Andes Mountains, in the town of Cuenca, Stanley Hall is searching out an old Catholic priest called Padre Crespi. Over 40 years, the old priest has gathered together a backyard museum in his orphanage church. Maurice has told Stanley Hall there are certain special pieces to look out for, like in all the best treasure trails. A golden plot, part of the message from the gods, with strange symbols on it, and a model of a dome carved in stone.
Now this is quite remarkable because it looks...
Pure gold, the old man shouts. Pure gold.
Any archaeologist who has studied the Sumerian, Babylonian,
Now, no conventional archaeologist would come to a backyard in South America looking for objects from the Babylonia of 5,000 years ago.
Syrian style. Quiero la placa metálica. Otra placa. This shape. A placa with the hole
us, his faith in Juan Moritz will be put to the test.
No. Ya cuando Cristóbal Colón había descubierto la América, ya no.
Some of them are quite remarkable, aren't they? Figurine.
Esta está hecha ahora, esta. Los juegos de los España, esta, 200.
¿Dónde figurine?
This is the dome Von Daniken claims came from the caves. He says it proves ancient people knew all about modern engineering.
No llegan ustedes, ellos prueban.
But old Padre Crespi isn't too interested in other
The
people's
dome
theories.
appeared in The Gold of the Gods book by Eric von Daniken. Well, this is a plaque that appears in von Daniken's book. You can get some idea of the scale of it. This particular character here, I've noticed, appears on the cheek of Chief Mayambi, who is the military head of the Shuaras down near Las Cuevas de los Tayos.
Oiga, pero dice, Shuara no.
No,
No hablar de Shuara.
no, Father Crespi.
Babilonia,
It is
el
not
Egipto,
Shuara.
Tierra del Fuego. La Shuara, otra película. Yo hice una gran película de los Shuara.
Sí, padre.
Pero 400 y más copias. Todos lo han querido eso, ¿no? De Washington, ¿no? La reina de Uber estaba sonada. Fuera. Pero la reina. Todo libro de historia.
Contains some history of a previous civilization.
All right, first and foremost, I want to give all praises to the Most High God Yahweh and His only begotten Son, YHWH, who the world ignorantly calls Jesus Christ. This is Brother Yawasop from GADAL GABARYAM. We are going to go into more historical and archaeological evidence proving that in pre-Columbian America, they were Hebrew Israelites from North Central South America, including the Caribbean islands. This is the first video to many videos that I will put on this topic. And now let's begin. Now, when Chief Joseph, a renowned Nez Perce leader, surrendered to Europeans in 1877, he gave a special gift to General Nelson Appleton Miles. The gift received by the general was a pendant that turned out to be an ancient Mesopotamian cuneiform tablet. According to Benjamin Danileh of AssyriaTimes.com, the tablet was translated by Robert Biggs, professor of Assyriology at the Oriental Institute of the University of Chicago. Now, ask yourself, why would somebody in the Midwest, a Native American tribe known as the Nez Perce in the Midwest of the United States of America today, would have an ancient Assyrian tablet written in the cuneiform language? And out of all things to be on the tablet, it was an ancient purchase of a lamb, which is only an Israelite custom, a lamb for sacrifice. Now I want you to pay close attention to what is on Chief Joseph's bag. Now, In ancient Assyria, this was a symbol for the god Ashur. Now you have to ask yourself once again, why does somebody in pre-Columbian America that was passed down from their ancestors would have a cuneiform written tablet for a purchase of a lamb, and on the very same chief's bag is an ancient Assyrian symbol for the god Ashur? Now, this very important symbol is found all throughout ancient America. Now, this symbol is in the cuneiform language, which was written by the ancient Assyrians and was the lingua franca of the ancient Levant, and including the Mediterranean and including even Egypt, spanning for over 1,000 years. Now, this cuneiform symbol itself is extremely important, and this is why. This spells Yod He Va He, which is Yod He Vav, okay? Which is actually, in the Assyrian dialect, the name of the Israelites' most high God, which is, we know to be in the ancient Paleo-Hebrew, Yahweh. So why would they have, once again, I'm going to continue to repeat myself to beat this in your head. Why would they have in ancient America, okay, Yod He Vav He in the ancient cuneiform language? Now, this is an excerpt from a book called The 10 Tribes of Israel by Timothy Jenkins, written in 1883, page 16. Now, the following is from Alexander's Messenger, published many years ago in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. Now, mind you, this is many years ago from 1883. A government officer stationed at Lake Superior at an early day before any white settlers had invaded that part of the country, after becoming acquainted with a number of Indian tribes, found one tribe in possession of copper tabs, tightly soldered. And when asked what it contained, they said they were not able to tell, but they had received it from their ancestors a long time ago. The officer finally prevailed upon them to let him open the article. And when he did, he found it filled with parchment with inscriptions that he could not read. But by sending the parchment to Washington City, where it was examined by competent Hebrew scholars, it was declared to be part of the 5 books of Moses. Here we have another link in chain proving the Hebrews were here many years before the white man came to this continent, and that the present North American Indians are their descendants. Now, this is historical evidence that they also had the laws of God, the first 5 books of Moses, in ancient America. This will explain the customs of circumcision. This will explain the feast days that were held in North, Central, and South America, including the Caribbean islands. This will even explain the fringes. This will explain the Yod He Vav He. This will explain many things that were in ancient America that, without a shadow of a doubt, will only link them to the ancient Israelites. You can't deny this truth. Now, here goes another archaeological artifact. This is called the Grave Creek Stone, founded by an archaeological group led by Jesse and Arborough Tomlinson. Now, in 1838, there was an archaeological excavation in Moundsville, West Virginia, which led to the discovery of 2 vaults which contain human skeletons with jewelry and other artifacts, along with a table plate-sized stone with unknown writings on it. Henry Rose Schoolcraft was the first to study the writing, and he later discovered that the stone contained ancient Hebrew writings. This stone now sits in the Smithsonian Museum of Natural History in Washington, D.C. Because, of course, these devils of the Smithsonian Museum take our artifacts and hide it. So this is once again another more archaeological evidence to prove that the Israelites were in ancient America. Now, these Hebrew inscriptions with the names Abraham, Isaac, Adam, and Moses were found in the Pinnacle Mountain in Farmington, Connecticut, which actually they found a lot more Hebrew inscriptions all throughout Connecticut, but that's besides the point. We're going to talk about these 4 important ones right here that the Smithsonian actually dismisses and says what had to be created by somebody that was a Jew during the mining in this mountain during the 1800s. Now, which is completely illogical, because why would there be Hebrew writing all over the Americas, North, Central, South America, and the Caribbean islands? And why would these be forgeries? Why? Because the Smithsonian is hiding something. They're hiding the truth in plain sight. Every time it comes to a written language, anytime it comes to anything technological that is in the Americas, the Smithsonian always refutes it and says it's a forgery. Now, this right here is evidence that the native Indians said they came from across the sea. Now, all of major Kachian sources are consistent in relating that the mythological founder fathers of the Kachian nations originated from somewhere across the sea. According to the Popol Vuh, the forefathers Balam Kitse, Balam Akab, Mahukutab, and Ikwi Balam came from Ka'apu Palo across the sea, Relent al Quij, where the sun emerges, that is from your east. The source is the pre-Columbian landscapes of creation and origin. Editor John Edward Stoller, page 122. Now, this is coming from the horse's mouth. Now, all throughout North, Central, and South America, there are stories that they always originated from where the sun rises, which goes exactly along with 2 Ezra chapter 13.
There's linguistic evidence that ties Mesoamerica to the Near East as well. The Nineties. Brian Stubbs, who is a Latter-day Saint and is an expert in the Uto-Aztecan languages, has been comparing them not just with Hebrew, but with languages cognate to Hebrew, such as Arabic. And he has concluded that there are a lot of remnants of the Hebrew language that one can find in the Uto-Azteco language.
As a linguist, I have found considerable evidence of Hebrew and Egyptian in at least one language family, Uto-Aztecan. I have not yet published my findings for the linguistic community. The Uto-Aztecan language family is a language, about 30 related languages that are descended from what linguists call Proto-Uto-Aztecan. Their geographic location ranges from Idaho in the north to Mexico City in the south, basically. There are a few dialects in other places. About half of them are in the southwest United States, the other half are in Mexico. Actually, what I find in Uto-Aztecan is 2 different dialects of Northwest Semitic and quite a bit of Egyptian that has the same sound correspondences as one of those dialects of Northwest Semitic. Northwest Semitic is the branch of Semitic that Hebrew comes out of, Hebrew and Phoenician and so forth. Now that's extremely interesting because that's exactly what the Nephite merger would be, is this merger of 2 different dialects of Northwest Semitic, one of them having a significant amount of Egyptian in them. And so it's extremely consistent, in fact so consistent that the probability of that happening by chance would be very low. Another thing we need to keep in mind about the Mulekites is that we don't know how they got here, except they obviously crossed the ocean somehow, but the Phoenicians were the prominent seafaring people of that time near Palestine. And in fact, the fact that the people of Mulek named their main waterway, the river Sidon, well, Sidon is a major port city of the Phoenicians.
We do have archaeological evidence that Mesoamerican peoples actually did move north and settled in the American Southwest, mostly in the area of Arizona, New Mexico. Chaco Canyon, for example, in New Mexico, there's evidence of two different cultures living there side by side. And one of these is very close to what we find in Mesoamerica. They build the same kind of structures, they use the same kind of pottery. And
first of all, it might be good to know that Uto-Aztecan is not really all that far from the Mayan area. In fact, some dialects, Aztecan dialects, are actually south of Mayan areas. Some Pipil is located in various places around the Mayan area. In fact, most Uto-Aztecan languages are located in what most LDS archaeologists would consider to be the Nephite land northward. In other words, in Mexico and then perhaps further north of that in the United States. DNA and language don't always match. In fact, it might be that they match less than half the time. For example, everybody in Europe has Roman DNA, also has Celtic DNA, also has Germanic DNA. Even though those were three separate people, they've mixed enough being in the same area that geneticists cannot isolate Celtic DNA, for example, nor Germanic DNA. There's simply this European DNA that's a mixture of everything. And so peoples in the Americas could well be descended.
Today spoken by the Quiche people in Guatemala in 1554 AD. It tells a story from 3 Mayan Indians. A translator was able to decipher the story. Now in the story, the Mayans said that they were the descendants of some of the 10 tribes of Israel that were exiled under the Assyrian king Shalmaneser. While in Assyria, they decided to leave and emigrate to a different land. Some were left behind, but some made it. Now the text read in the Mayan language, these then were 3 nations of Quiches, and they came from where the sun rises in the east, descendants of Israel of the same language and the same customs. Now what is interesting is that the Mayans say that they are the sons of Yaqui. And the Aztecs and Mayans say that when they were forced to leave Israel or Tulan, they traveled south to the sea and then to the ocean. Now, based off of direct study of the Native American Indians and ancient books such as Ills in America, or Probabilities that the Americans are of that race, written in 1650 AD by Thomas Thorogood, many Europeans believe that the Indians were descendants of the Northern Kingdom Israelites who were displaced by the Assyrian king Shalmaneser. Old accounts of stories told by the Native Indians describe their people as Israelites who left Israel during the reign of the Israelite king Hosea in the 8th century BC. But this is not the only thing that they describe. Native Indians were known, according to the Jesuits, Sephardic Gentile Jews, the Mormons, and other Europeans, to exhibit the following Hebrew traditions. They performed their camp or people's division into tribes, such as the Israelites. Now, some of the tribes also wrote from right to left, just as in the Hebrew script. They followed 2 to 3 wheat harvests in 1 year. They didn't swear or take oaths. They didn't drink or commit adultery, and they believed in the Oracle Covenant. They also had an Ark of Bulderuth, which was similar to the Ark of the Covenant. The tabernacle was carried by 4 priests only, and they pitched a tent facing the east. And they called their aunts and uncles mother and father, which is seen in West Africa today. And they had cleanliness laws where women on their menses or after childbirth had to be set apart for 7 days, and on the 8th day they were able to come back to the village. They did not eat pork, and as in the Hebrew levirate marriage, the widow had to marry the brother of the deceased husband. Their circumcision was performed with stone knives, as in the Hebrew culture, and the Indians believed in Hades, or a great pit for sinners, which they call Papgufo. And the Indians wore vestments similar to the Aaronical robes of the high priest, and the first fruits were offered, such as corn, meat, and fish. They observed a year of Jubilee, which is seen in the Hebrew culture, and they uttered the word Hallelujah. The temple was where the Indians worshiped, they sang and prayed and made offerings. And their worship of YHWH was known throughout many Indian tribes. Their notions of a theocracy was also seen, and they had a belief in the administration of angels. Their language and dialect showed a Hebrew influence, and they had the same manner of counting time as many of the ancient Hebrews. In the village, they had prophets, high priests, and a king hierarchy, and their divination rites were similar to the Aaronical high priesthood. Now, the Udu-Aztecan family consists of many different Indian tribes. Semitic linguistic experts in Arabic, Aramaic, and Hebrew all have agreed that Hebrew and Egyptian can be found in the native Indians' dialect of the Udu-Aztecan speakers. However, the truth is often suppressed of this knowledge to the outside world. Here are some of the tribes in the Udu-Aztecan family who still retain evidence of their Hebrew ancestry in the language.